Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that if we do not know our history, then we are undoubtedly doomed to repeat it? And therefore, will she provide me with an update on the efforts being made to ensure that our children are taught Scotland's history in relation to the British Empire?
Cabinet Secretary.
I very much agree with the member's sentiment, and particularly given that it's Black History Month, I think it is really important our history and our wider social studies curriculum provide a range of opportunities to teach about the British Empire, including Scotland's role in that. We're currently funding programmes of professional learning in relation to teaching slavery in Scotland and also migration and empire. Our anti-racism curriculum principles explicitly address the point that through the commitment that our children and young people will understand and inquire into Scotland's role in historical world events, which is hugely important. And that includes, of course, transatlantic enslavement and colonial histories and their continuing impact to this day. Education Scotland are also working with local councils to support the implementation of anti-racism curriculum principles.
So I'm going to try my damnedest to refrain from losing my temper, but I will just say briefly in advance as a slight caveat that today, the date and whatnot, kind of falls on an anniversary that I don't particularly like, so my mood isn't exactly fantastic, for lack of a better term. That said, I just kind of want to highlight this stuff again, anti-racist curriculum principles. And I take absolutely no pleasure in feeling vindicated. I don't even like to use the term vindication, to be honest. However, time after time after time, I do feel somewhat vindicated in the sense that so much of the stuff that I speak about just continuously, as the months progress into the years, continuously just shows itself to be exactly what I've been pointing out. You know, so this website, again, just briefly, anti-racist curriculum principles was what was in the previous clip. That brings me back to the website that I made a video on, maybe last weekend or whatever it was, right? Okay. And I just want to also say, this is something that I've spoken about for years now at this point, building racial literacy, Melina Valdineri, etc., the Building Racial Literacy Program. My first video on said topic was 2 years ago, probably arguably going on 3 years now, right? Started off in 2022. That's when I first came across it. Got a whole playlist on this topic, okay? But the people in question, they're always in and around the current thing, shall we say. And then, of course, on top of that, all the other things that I'll speak about from time to time, learning for sustainability, global citizenship education, etc. It all seems to very conveniently tie in to one another. But no, I must be speaking out my backside, clearly. You know, what really does frustrate me, just on a wee brief side note, is that to this day, I do not really see anybody else in Scotland talking about this, right? And that's not me blowing smoke up my own arse. I actually just wish people would speak about it, because either I'm going insane, either I'm going mental, right? And this isn't as serious as I believe it to be, or people just don't take it seriously in and of themselves. I don't know, but regardless, we're back to this website again very briefly, right, to start off with, okay? Antiracist.scot. This is the brand new website, okay? Scottish government funded, Scottish government backed website, which is specifically designed for teacher training, okay? So it's providing resources for teachers to be re-educated on the matter of anti-racism. And we all know what anti-racism is. It's critical race theory, it's anti-whiteism, etc. However, just very briefly here, right? So resources and support for anti-racist education practitioners across Scotland. The website provides tools, workshops, and ideas to support early learning, early years practitioners and teachers, early years being children in nursery, in Scotland, to build an anti-racist curriculum which responds positively to the diverse needs of individual learning, where all cultures, religions, and identities and languages are recognised and valued. Okay. However, let's just go to this first. Language, okay? Using the correct language. All the workshops in this resource use terminology from the anti-racist educator. The anti-racist educator. And we'll come to that in a second. And guidance from whatever. Writer, organizer, and anti-racist educator, and Melina Valdineri, Senior Education Officer at Education Scotland. Melina Valdineri. Now, for anybody that's followed my channel for any length of time, well, you'll fucking know who the hell she is. But regardless, anti-racist educator. It's remarkable how all this stuff just seems to work in tandem with one another. The Anti-Racist Educator, a website that I came across many a year ago, a website that we've discussed on streams, a website that I've showcased multiple times before, but they've got the anti-racist glossary. It's important to be clear what we mean by certain words, since we don't necessarily share an understanding of these. And that is when frustration begins, right? But regardless, let's just go to their glossary. What have we got? Racist, race, racism, privilege, person of color, political blackness, whiteness, white fragility, critical race theory, white supremacy, etc., etc. You know, look at them all. I mean, so a brand new Scottish government-backed website uses hyperlinks that directs you to a fucking website full of critical race theorists. But yeah, I'm a crackpot apparently. Okay. Regardless, we're not going to get too bogged down on that per se. So we'll just come back to the website in question. This is the brand new Scottish government-backed website, of course, right? So we'll come back and we'll go to policy links, right? Using this anti-racist resource will support progress in a range of associated national priorities. And just bear in mind as well where this fucking derived from, right? This is the Scottish Government's website, okay? Anti-Racism in Education Programme. The programme was formerly known as the Race Equality and Anti-Racism in Education Programme. The Scottish Government's Anti-Racism in Education Programme was established in response to George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter dance, and one of the recommendations made by the COVID-19 ethnicity expert group seeking to include the teaching of Black history in the curriculum. Yes, that's right. During COVID, right, disparities emerged, and one of the recommendations coming out the back of COVID and the aforementioned disparities was, well, do you know what might solve the problem in Scotland of more Black people allegedly dying of COVID? Teaching Black history in school, of course. But regardless, officials in the Learning Directorate, Education Scotland and the Equality Unit undertook a series of engagement sessions with education and race equality stakeholders to gain a better understanding of what the challenges are in terms of race inequality and racism in schools. At the beginning of 2021, the Deputy First Minister and the Minister for Older People and Equality met a number of stakeholders in order to listen to their suggestions for addressing race equality in schools. Now, if we come down here, they have subgroups. 4 of them were created at the time. 4 subgroups have been created, and members will bring their different viewpoints together with evidence to develop a set of actions which address race equality in schools across 4 distinct areas: curriculum reform, racism and racist incidents, diversity in the teaching profession, and education, leadership and professional learning. Curriculum reform used to once upon a time literally say down here that they were intending to redesign Scottish education or Scottish academia through a critical race theorist framework, which I've got a video on, but they've since scrubbed that. Funny that. However, it says the curriculum reform subgroup is leading an approach to articulating and embedding anti-racism across the curriculum at local and national level. The group has been engaging with the ongoing programme of wider education reform to support a focus on inclusion, diversity, and racial and cultural literacy into the future priorities of the education system. Okay, just so we're all on like the same page here, very briefly. However, using this anti-racist resource, blah, 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 breaking the mold. This is the anti-racist curriculum principles that were previously mentioned in that wee video there at the start. Use of these workshops and resources will support schools to realise the anti-racist curriculum principles for all learners in Scottish schools, where individual workshops address specific elements of the principles. This is signposted with the relevant workshop guidance. Is that so? Okay, and here are the anti-racist curriculum principles. And who do you think fucking designed these this BS? Who do you think designed it? Oh, that's right, Melina. Yet again, Melina. Before I go any further, I'll just show you this because this is her. Yes, this is her in all her glory, Melina Valdineri. Yes. Yeah, Jesus, it's just remarkable.
More inclusive for everyone. We and ask participants to follow the different principles and commit to them as we start to build our racial literacy together. So the first principle is around acknowledging emotions. So we often like to think about different issues like racism in an intellectual way. We like looking at the data, we like doing the research and engaging our brains. But actually, it's also really important to engage our hearts and understand why racism is an issue, how it occurs, and also experience a lot of the different emotions racism can bring. So thinking about compassion, but also the hurt, the anger, the fear that comes with racism. So during conversations about racism that can be very difficult, we ask participants to take a note of their emotions on their reflective journals, for example, and trying to ask why we might be experiencing those emotions will actually lead to deeper learning. For participants of color, Black, Asian, and minority ethnic educators as well, it's important to recognize that some of those emotions might be linked to things like racial trauma. And for white majority ethnic participants, there might be some discomfort there around the emotions we experience. Brings us on to the second principle, which is around embracing productive discomfort. In any conversation about race, it's normal to actually experience some discomfort. And so it's really helpful to lean into that discomfort as much as possible, especially for white majority ethnic participants, educators, it's quite common to experience that discomfort. But for particularly participants of color, that discomfort can become distress if we're thinking about racial trauma. And that's where we ask participants to step back and commit to their self-care, really ask themselves what they need to be doing to stay committed to anti-racism in the long run. There's often a risk of burning out or being too emotionally drained. So that's another principle that comes into our program, the commitment to self-care. The final two principles are around building relationships. So we're more likely to engage in anti-racism and be more productive in our efforts if we're actually trying to build relationships and call people in rather than pointing fingers and calling them out. And if we see the capacity for growth in everyone, both ourselves, we might be making mistakes in our efforts or in our conversations, but actually mistakes are part of any learning journey. We need that growth mindset. And we also need to.
So the Scottish Government fund the Building Racial Literacy Programme under the umbrella term of anti-racist curriculum reform, and lo and behold, the Melina Valdineri, etc. Melina Valdineri, of course, being the or one-off, not the only one, one of the co-creators of the anti-racist anti-racist educators, sorry, that website which talks about white privilege, etc., right? She's now a part of Education Scotland. She subsequently has created the Building Racial Literacy Programme, which is critical race theory in and of itself, which I've showcased so many. I mean, it's self-explanatory, for fuck's sake. But regardless, right? And one of the things that's come out of the back of that to sort of justify their Scottish Government funding is the curriculum or breaking the mold, anti-racist curriculum principles. Okay, so. Here we have emerging from the anti-racism in education program, these anti-racist curriculum principles have been designed to support educators, leaders, and learners to understand what an anti-racist curriculum can mean in practice. Okay, the principles can be used to support professional learning, dialogue, and reflection for staff and self-evaluation, promoting the co-design of an anti-racist curriculum with learners. Okay, so here are the principles in question. Our children and young people will experience a curriculum that meaningfully recognises and fairly represents the rich and diverse communities in Scotland and beyond. That silence there was deliberate, by the way, because it's just nonsensical, fluffy pish. Our children and young people will understand and inquire into Scotland's role in historical world events, including transatlantic enslavement and colonial histories and their continuing impact today. Oh, is that right? You know, and as I've said before, multiple other videos and streams, etc., over the course of the past few years, like what really frustrates me about these people and their alleged claims that they're trying to sort of right the wrongs of the past and educate people on certain, wrongdoings, historically speaking, they refuse and they exclude every other form of slavery, etc., such as, Ottoman Empire slavery, Barbary slavery, Arab slave trade, etc., etc. It's just we need to focus on the white man. Okay, so they're deliberately excluding every other form of slavery, past, present, etc., in order to sort of formulate and construct a conveniently political narrative, right? But regardless, children and young people will learn about and investigate past and present events in ways that amplifies underrepresented perspectives and stories. Underrepresented. I mean, this terminology really fucks me up. It's Scotland, okay? This isn't Nigeria. Children will feel safe and confident to co-design their curriculum from their personal perspectives. Why do children will co-design their own curriculum? So you introduce anti-racist talking points and topics and whatnot into schools, and then when the children in turn start to demand or suggest or allude to updating, modifying, modernizing their curriculum, well, you know, that's fine. Problem, reaction, solution, etc. Children will be critically thinking global citizens that challenge discrimination and prejudice. Global citizens. We'll come back to that in just a second. Children will learn the difference between individual and systemic racism. Children will be supported to reflect on positionality, privilege, and power, and to unlearn bias, prejudice, and divisiveness. Children will learn that everyone has a right to be safeguarded from racism and discrimination, and will be empowered to challenge any infringement of this right. Children will be empowered to bring about any new ways of being together in the world by valuing and promoting empathy, solidarity, and shared humanity. And then they've got more principles, but this is for teachers and leaders and educators. Educators or teachers will commit to continual personal and professional learning to develop a high level of racial literacy. Racial literacy. What is racial literacy? This is critical race theory. This is the fucking point. You keep hitting it over and over and over and over and over again. Teachers will reflect upon their assumptions and biases, their racial and social identities, and those of others, and consider their impacts or the impacts these have on their professional practice. Teachers will investigate and actively challenge all manifestations of racism in everyday behaviors, resources, attitudes, practices, and processes, etc., etc. But the point is, okay, like all of this utter gibberish, okay? Breaking the mold, our curriculum must be an anti-racist curriculum. And as it says, emerging from the anti-racism and education program, you just click on the fucking link. And where does it take you to? Where does it take you to? You know? Scottish Government's website. Oh, what a shock, you know? However, so that leads us back to the brand spanking website again. So where were we? We were at breaking the mold, anti-racist curriculum principles. We just come down ever so slightly, and it says children's right. Of course, children's rights and getting it right for every child. Okay, the workshops and activities support children and young people's access to the following rights. Article 2 of the UNCRC. Government should make sure that every child has access to their rights and that children are protected against discrimination. I love this one. This is such a fucking... So the UNCRC comes into being, and one of their rights is that they have to have access to their rights. Isn't that convenient? Anyway, Article 12. Children and young people should be supported to give their views in the way that is best for them. Okay, so you politicize children, you sort of shuffle up the curriculum, you modify it, you politicize it, etc. Then children start to, as I said earlier on, allude to, suggest things, etc., etc., etc. And, you know, well, we have to support them to be able to showcase their views. Article 29 says education should prepare children and young people for a responsible life in a free society, teaching them how to live in an understanding and tolerant way. Who gets to define what is and what isn't tolerance, I hear you ask? That is non-violent and that respects the environment. And then it goes on to say here, building anti-racist and decolonial approaches into practice and culture will help foster a school environment which delivers on all of the getting it right for every child well-being indicators. Healthy, active, nurtured, achieving, respected, responsible, and included for all learners. Going on to then say here, learning for sustainability and global citizenship. Anti-racist education is a key aspect of global citizenship, which is one of the 3 pillars of learning for sustainability. It's fucking remarkable. how everything just seems to tie into one another, almost as if, without having to put on an Alex Jones signed tinfoil hat, that they're all working in tandem, agenda speaking, that is, you know, regardless. 3 pillars of learning for sustainability alongside sustainable development education and outdoor learning. Quality global citizenship education supports learners to be aware of the wider world and their role as a world citizen, respect and value diversity, how convenient, develop an understanding of how the world works, participate in the community at a range of levels from local to the global, work with others to make the world a more equitable, fancy word, eh? Not equal, no, equitable and sustainable place, and take responsibility for their actions adopted from the Oxfam principles. You know, and then you come to like stuff like this, yeah, if I can find it, because I've got so many fucking tabs open yet again. So this is one of the PDFs that they recommend on this website, right? Seeds for Change is how it's described as, or it's titled even. So if we just come down, okay, and it says, developing global citizens through play, an early level resource, okay. So let's just come down here. Introduction. This resource is about how each one of us can contribute in a small but significant way to making the world a better place, a little bit fairer and a little bit more sustainable. We will come back to sustainability in just a second before I conclude this video. We can do this by adapting our approach to working with young children to nurture their development as active global citizens. So bear in mind, you got anti-racism, you've got learning for sustainability, and you've got global citizenship education. Right. Research has shown that children as young as 3 have already formed ideas and opinions about themselves, others, and their place in the world. They absorb common social attitudes and prejudice, but also start to understand the concepts of fairness, justice, and empathy early on too. Okay, so if children naturally start to develop a semblance of empathy, why is there such an emphasis on trying to educate children to feel and experience air quote unquote empathy? Empathy is something that cannot be taught, right? Empathy is something that most children or people in general will begin to develop unless you're a fucking sociopath, okay? Anyway, that's here nor there. That's just how to use this resource. This resource has 4 major parts. First section, providing a foundation for understanding global citizenship and a child-centered play pedagogy. Second section, giving guidance on the general approach and a toolkit of strategies which support the development of global citizenship through play. It's just mental. It's like, it's the same way that like they do this with like climate change stuff, right? So they'll teach children that climate change is real, or they'll start to introduce children to like climate change sort of curriculum areas and whatnot, but they'll sort of blur the lines and conflate litter and whatnot. So they'll get children to go out and litter pick, for example. But yet that's sort of like the gateway into teaches them that, you know, the planet's burning. It was cinder, by the way. You know, when you pick up those like packets of crisps and tins of Red Bull, yeah. Oh, by the way, little Johnny, planet's burning. It's like they're 2 separate things. Sorry, fucking hell. The third section highlights 3 cross-cutting themes of global citizenship education, anti-racism, gender, and nature connection. I mean, talk about fucking cultism. Surely people can see this for what it is. It's like pure cultism. But regardless, global citizenship education. From birth, children are learning about themselves and have a natural curiosity and wonder about the world around them. As they grow, they begin to form a sense of their own identity and to recognize similarities and differences with others. This then grows into a sense of belonging. Today, we are more connected than ever, whether that's through migration, trade, or the media. Even young children, or very young children even, will have some knowledge of the issues facing our world, and will have started to form views about people and places. As educators, we have an important role in providing learning experiences which support children to make sense of our interconnected world as active global citizens. Like, I don't know what the fuck else it's going to take for people to, like, whether they read this stuff themselves or they just watch my videos from start to finish. What is it going to take for people to realize that this is just insane? This is fucking insane, the stuff that they are coming out with. What happened to going to school to learn your numeracy and your geography and, you know, questionable history, or just, you know, going to school and coming out at the end of the school day, you know, a bit more informed than you were the day prior? This is just politics now at this point. It's fucking politics, politicizing, propagandizing. It's nefarious. It's malevolent. Active global citizens. What did you learn today at school, son? I learned how to be an active global citizen. What? I don't know. I really don't know. Global citizenship involves learning about how the world works, including our global connections and interdependencies. But it goes further. Interdependencies, by the way, this is another one. Like, you keep hearing this term over and over and over and over again, right? You know, sovereign nations take a back seat, boys. Okay, we're also all about interdependency now. We need to be in unions, etc. But it goes further than that to develop the skills, values, and attitudes which we need to have a positive impact in the world. Who gets to determine what is and what isn't a positive impact inside the world? You know, I mean, come on, man. Knowledge and understanding, social justice and equity, what is fair and unfair, identity and diversity, uniqueness and value of every person, similarities and differences, globalization and interdependence, connections with immediate and local environments, sustainable development, peace and conflict, human rights, power and governance, creative thinking, empathy, self-awareness, communication, etc. Right? Just and it goes on and on. Commitment to social justice and equity, valuing diversity. Right? We're just going to go down here very briefly. Play and global. Recent Education Scotland guidance, such as realizing the ambition, recognizes that children learn best when they're leading the way in their own learning. Enabling children to follow their own line of inquiry or individual interest is the basis of a child-centered play pedagogy. Learning through play is active, meaningful, motivating, and joyful. When play is facilitated by skilled practitioners, the curriculum is brought to life and rewarding and transformative. Learning, fuck off. They learn to communicate, think critically, problem solve, negotiate, collaborate, advocate, and resolve conflict. These are all key global citizenship, knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes. And it goes on, and it goes on, and then it says, in 2015, world leaders came together to agree on a set of 17 goals to transform our world by 2030, with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals being a universal call to action, aiming to end poverty, protect the lives, protect the planet, and improve the lives and prospects of everyone. Scotland was one of the first countries to sign up to the goals, and we can all help contribute towards them, with education playing a vital role in this by supporting individuals to develop the relevant knowledge, skills, and positive attitudes. And then, of course, they mention Sustainable Development Goal 4.7, which says education for sustainable development and global citizenship. No, it doesn't say that, but education, Sustainable Development Goal 4.7 literally states like learning for sustainability, global citizenship, etc., should be like implemented in the curriculum. I thought I was going to say that there, but it didn't. And then it goes on to talk about getting it right for every child and UNCRC, of course. Of course it fucking does, because it all works in tandem, doesn't it? Goes on and on and on and on. Just before global citizenship education. Yep. Where's the anti-racism shite? Just quickly. Yeah. Talking about race. Here we go, man. It's just I don't know. Anti-racism practice is an important aspect of global citizenship. Anti-racist practice is an important aspect of global citizenship, yeah. starts by looking inwards to think about the biases that each of us have, even at an unconscious level. One of the most important things we can do is to actively choose to learn more about these issues. Okay. Oh my God. To say I don't see colour or everybody is the same is to dismiss the difference that race still makes to the lives of people in Scotland. Talking about race. Children are never too young to start talking about race. Even if children are not explicitly talking or asking about race, they will be noticing differences. By the age of 3, children have already developed. Where is it? Where the fuck did it go? Where's the end of it? I don't know. Regardless, harmful, powerful, systemic racism. Racism isn't just intentional angry or mean behavior towards a particular group of people. Systemic racism recognizes the fact that we live in a society where economic, political, social, and cultural policies and practices reinforce an unequal distribution of resources, safety, and power in favor of the dominant racial group. And then they put in brackets, white people, white privilege, microaggressions. It's just mental. Oh man, it goes on and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. Learning for sustainability, global citizenship education, etc. But I just have to show you this as well before I fucking conclude, because I do realise that this video is starting to go on a wee bit. You know? Target 2030, a movement for people, planet and prosperity. Scotland's Learning for Sustainability Action Plan 2023 to 2030. Learning for sustainability is a cross-cutting theme in the Scottish education system. As learning through landscapes, we welcome the refreshed Learning for Sustainability Action Plan. The term learning for sustainability, coined in Scotland, is now gaining traction in other countries as a cross-curricular approach which enables learners, educators, learning settings and their wider community to build a socially just, sustainable and equitable society, and as effective whole-setting approach which weaves together global citizenship, sustainable development and outdoor learning to create coherent, rewarding and transformative learning experiences. And lo and behold, Jenny fucking Gilruth back in the day, you know, Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth launching Learning for Sustainability Action Plan on a visit to Grove Academy in Dundee. I remember it, man. I made a fucking video on it, man, at the time, eh? Or a stream even. I think it was a stream, actually. Yeah. Another one of just Learning for Sustainability. Scotland celebrates its 10th anniversary. Recently marked a significant milestone. The Scotland's Regional Centre of Expertise in Education for Sustainable Development, recognised by the United Nations. Learning for Sustainability Scotland has been a pivotal force in weaving learning for sustainability across educational policy and practice in Scotland and beyond. It's just fucking everywhere, you know? Like literally everywhere. A movement for people, planet and prosperity. Yeah. Look. UNCRC, UN Sustainable Development Goals, sorry. Just mental. Fucking mental. I love this little quote here. And I think we'll conclude in this because I don't want to go too much further. The call from learners and educators is clear. More needs to be done to ensure all learners receive their entitlement to learning for sustainability. They fully recognize the importance of climate and social justice, equality and outdoor learning. We need to accelerate the speed of change and educate our learners for the future. All of our policy ambitions in relation to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, climate and net zero, biodiversity, circular economy, and economic and social transformation can only be delivered with the commitment of Scotland's people, supported throughout their education. Brainwash our fucking youth, and you just might be able to achieve the future that you so desperately desire. But yeah, just to sort of conclude, because as I say, a lot of tabs open. As I say, man, it's just, I just find it remarkable. They're all intertwined. They're all intertwined. This anti-racist shit does not, or did not, appear out of nowhere. All intertwined. Peace. You know?